Hello and welcome to my channel. So glad you're here. Today we are going to do my January wrap-up. I have my notebook, my reading note-taking notebook that I'm going to be looking at quite a bit. So if you see me like looking down or like reading, I've started taking notes on all the books that I read so that it's easier to make these videos. Sometimes when I'm making these videos and I'm talking about a book, like I know what the book is about, but I can have a hard time saying what it's about. I get really excited and then I'm editing and I'm like, what did I even say? So I wanted to write down like my notes so that I don't forget anything, and then also my stats so that I can just be a little bit more like organized, because I can be pretty scatterbrained and just kind of all over the place. So that's why I have this notebook now. I need to decorate it though, this is really boring. So for my January stats, I read 9 books, which I'm happy about. I read 4 audiobooks and 5 immersion reads, so audiobook along with the physical book. And I read 2 books out of my 26 for 2026 TBR. My average rating was a 3, like exactly a 3. This was not a great reading month, but thankfully February is going fantastic. But let's talk about January. The first book that I read, I thought I was gonna start the year off with like an amazing book, like a book I would treasure. And I don't think this is a bad book, but there were some things about it I did not like, and that is Brave New World. This cover, like I love this. I thought I was going to love this as much as I loved George Orwell's 1984. Like I thought this was gonna like be like this, just like a different story. But let's talk about it. So Brave New World, this is a dystopian novel set in a future society that prioritizes stability, efficiency, and happiness above all else. The world is controlled by a single global government where people are genetically engineered and conditioned from birth into rigid society classes from alpha to epsilons. Individuality, family, religion, and deep emotional connections are eliminated because they can cause conflict and unhappiness. Citizens are kept docile through constant pleasure, consumerism, and a drug called soma, which suppresses pain and dissatisfaction. Like I think that this book has a lot of good things going on in it. Like the message is really good. You know, there are things in this book that, you know, happen today. We're following Bernard, who is a beta? No, he's an alpha. And he just kind of feels like he doesn't fit in this society. He kind of questions some things. Then we're following Lenina, who is a beta, and she represents like the perfect citizen in this dystopian society. And then we're following John, who's the savage, he's referred to as a savage, who grew up outside of the society in a reservation, and his perspective was the one I liked the most. And so he's introduced to this society and he's like, wow, there's so many things wrong with this place. My issue was at the very beginning of this book, and it's supposed to make you feel this way. It's not, the things wrong with this society, but the grooming, the like brainwashing, the conditioning, that's what it's called. The conditioning that these people receive like from birth, and like as they grow up, it's icky, and that happens very early on. Like we start the book with like a tour of the place where they grow the people, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting, I think this is going to be great. And then we like now see like kids and how they're conditioned, and I was like, oh, that's so awful. And that was like, that's what stuck with me in this book, the conditioning of the children, and I just thought that was awful. And I mean, but this is supposed to be, you know, there are things wrong with this society. I also was sometimes a little bit confused with the people that we were following. And that might have just been because I switched to an audiobook kind of early on in this book, maybe around like here. So maybe if I had immersion read all of it, I wouldn't have been so confused. But I did like the perspective of the savage. Like a lot of dystopian books, freedom is being taken away from the citizens. The freedom to feel, to have like family. Like the word mother is like you don't say those words. Like those are like almost like bad words. Like the kids, like they don't say mother. There's no family, but it's supposed to create this perfect society where like in this book there's also like the question of like, do we even need God anymore? Does he even exist? Because everything is perfect. And there's a quote that I see, you know, this is the quote of the book. The savage is talking to a man in the society, and he's saying that, you know, they're talking about getting rid of everything unpleasant, and the savage says, but I don't want comfort. I want God, I want poetry, I want real danger, I want freedom. I want goodness, I want sin. Not to mention the right to grow old and ugly, the right to have syphilis and cancer, the right to have too little to eat, the right to be lousy, the right to live in constant apprehension of what may happen tomorrow, the right to catch typhoid, the right to be tortured by unspeakable pains of every kind. I claim them all, said the savage at last. So the savage sees this perfect society, but he sees that there's no freedom. He's like, I want the freedom to age. I want the freedom to even to have discomfort. I want freedom. And it's also a sad ending. Like I would be curious to reread this. Knowing the beginning part was very uncomfortable and kind of ruined my experience of the book, I would be curious to read it again. It is a classic. That's how I kind of feel about a lot of my classics, that I want to reread them because I feel like I'm gonna get more out of them the second time I read them. So that is the first book. I gave it 3 stars. I would recommend this if you like dystopians, if you want to read a classic. This is really short. I'm just curious to see if I reread it, if I would actually rate it higher a second time, because the conditioning and having this feeling of like, I don't, like this icky, it just kind of ruined it a little bit for me. And maybe also not listening to it. Perhaps like reading it a little bit more like the physical book, I would have enjoyed it more. So that's the first one I read. Yeah, I could see rereading it. The second book that I read was the 3rd book in the Twilight series, which is Eclipse. This is my least favorite one so far. I was actually confused. When I started reading this, I was like, is there a movie for this book? Like, I couldn't even remember the movie until like near the end. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. But for most of the book, I was like, they didn't make a movie for this book. And they did, they definitely did. I think this is maybe just the most boring of the books so far. Like, something that I noticed is that this one has a lot of stories that were told, which, I mean, it's not a bad thing, but I just noticed that in this book. We get a story about the tribe, like Jacob's, the werewolves, like the origins of them becoming werewolves. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. So we get like that story, and then we get the story of both 2 vampires. Oh, I can't remember their names. Like their backstory. It's gonna come to me later, but we get both of their backstories. So I just noticed, I was like, there's a lot of storytelling in this book. And something else that I noticed is that I feel like Jacob and Edward talk quite a bit in this book, more than what I remember from the movie. In the scene where they're in the tent and it's Jacob, Edward, and Bella, and they're like trying to keep her away and it's like really cold out, I feel like Jacob and Edward talked a lot in the book, and I don't remember that in the movie. Like, I know that they talked after Bella fell asleep, but I was like, they're having like a long conversation. Bella annoyed me, and I just felt so bad for Charlie. Like, she's graduating, and it's funny. I feel like after becoming a parent, I like take the parent side now in books. I'm like, ah, stupid Edward wants to take Bella away from Charlie. Like, that's his baby, and stupid Edward. Yeah, I thought that was funny. Also, in this book, I think it's this one, Bella is reading Wuthering Heights, and I was like, oh, she loves the book, and I didn't like it, and Edward doesn't like it, so I was like, yeah, I agree with Edward. But I did read this one, I did listen to this one, and I'm glad to have it. Like, I'm glad that I read it, because I'm gonna read all of them, and they're like fun to listen to. This has just been my least favorite so far. I gave this 2 stars. I've given the rest of them 3. I gave this one 2. So this is YA fantasy, but that's the next one I read. My 3rd read, so disappointing. Oh my gosh. It was Silver Shard by Geneva Monroe. Guys, I loved book 1 and book 2, and I know it's been a while since I read them, but I have them right here. Sun Spear and Star Spear. Sun Serpent and Star Spear. This is an adult romantasy. There is a lot of romance in these books, but I loved the story in these books, and that it's not enemies to lovers, and I even like the side characters that we're following. And they're like dragon shifters, and there are also dragons. Like, there are different kinds of like shifters, and people have like elemental powers. So this is gonna be a saga, which I also don't think it should be. I think it should have been a trilogy. I think she should have ended it here. Like, I'm not gonna read the 4th book. So in the saga, we're following Alira Solaris, a young fire singer with mysterious powers, and Prince Callan, or Cal as he's referred to in the book, a wind singer, as they navigate political danger, personal loss, and magic threats in a world filled with intrigue, curses, and dark forces. A god unleashed, a kingdom on the edge of ruin, war is coming, and time is running out. So we have Alira, who's a fire singer, so she can control fire, Cal, who controls wind, and then Nox, I think that's how you say his name. He's a seed singer and fauna, so he like can control plants, and I really like that. But we started following another character, and I was like, who is this character? I did not care about her perspective at all. Like, I don't even know who she was. I don't remember her from book 1 and 2 at all. So I didn't like the new POV. Some of the dialogue was so awkward. Like, I was like, why did she include, like, why did she write this? There was also too much spice, I thought, and like, I don't know, spice not necessary to the story, I felt. Also, the queen changes, like, it made me so upset when a character is like so set in their ways and then changes so fast. I was like, what? Like, there were things that just didn't make sense. The queen is so set in something. She will not change her mind. Like, everyone knows this, and then all of a sudden she changes her mind out of nowhere and like gives away her crown. And I was like, that just seemed like really poorly written. That like there was all of this, and what changed her mind was so stupid. So I did not like that. I thought that was poorly written. Some of the affection was also really awkward. Like, his pet name for her, he said it too much. And then there were just things that like 2 characters would say to each other that was so cringy. And things that they would say to each other in front of other people. Ugh. I gave it 2 stars. I thought it was so bad. I was so surprised. And now, like, I don't want to reread book 1 and 2 because I'm worried that my opinion of those 2 books would change. But I read these like not last year, the end of 2024. I think I read these, yeah, the mid to end of 2024. So it's not like it's been like 10 years. But I truly believe that these two were better than this one, like better written. So this was so disappointing. I could not wait to read book 3. I also thought it was ending in book 3, and it's not. It's gonna be 4 books, but this was a very disappointing read. Followed up by another 2 disappointing reads, unfortunately. I read The Trial of the Sun Queen and also The Rule of the Aurora King. These are also romanticises. They are not the worst romanticises I've ever read, but they're definitely not good. In The Trial of the Sun Queen, we're following Lore, a young woman who spent 12 years in a brutal prison under the rule of the Aurora King. She's freed from prison to compete against 9 other tributes in the Sun Queen trials, a deadly contest where only one woman wins the king's heart. It had a very interesting start. I thought I was gonna like our main character. She was very feisty, like, I was really excited about the trials, but then, and I feel like there was like world building for a while that I also enjoyed. Like I was so optimistic about these books, but the trials were so lame. It was like trivia. This is fantasy, and like the trials, it was like one of the main questions, like a pivotal part in the trials was like, what is the king's favorite color? I was like, really? There was also too much spice, which is always my complaint, and I think it was also just that it was kind of gross. And so it was like lame trials, and then in this book, they're like, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's book 2, but they're like searching for something, and that was also very lame. I thought this was going to be like it was not this like quest. That's what I was trying to say. Like it wasn't this cool quest. It was like just searching through a building, and for like ever. I thought I was gonna love this series, and I don't even want to keep these. Like I'm kind of annoyed that I annotated book 1 so much, because like I said, like I wanted to love this, and I didn't hate it, but the longer I like see these books on my shelf, I'm like, I would never reread these. I would not recommend them, and I kind of just want to get rid of them. So I am a very picky romantic-y person, though. I'm not always, I mean, I know I read quite a few this month, but I want to love the genre. There are some really good romantic-y books that I have read, and these just were not it. I gave Trial of the Sun Queen 3 stars, and I immersion read it, and then I gave the Rule of the Aurora King 2 stars, because I disliked it even more than the first one. Okay, the next book I read, I don't have a physical copy of, but I read Days at the Morisaki Bookshop. I always want to say bookstore, it's bookshop, by Satoshi Yagisawa. I listened to this book, very short book, and it is a book kind of like about books and about bookshops, which I thought I was gonna really like. So we're following Takako, I hope I'm saying her name right, a 25-year-old woman in Tokyo whose life falls apart when her boyfriend reveals he's marrying someone else. Her uncle, a quirky and dedicated owner of a secondhand bookshop, invites her to live rent-free in the tiny room above the shop and help out. She's surrounded by musty shelves and the stories in countless books. This has amazing atmosphere. It is, you know, heartfelt. The relationship between her and her uncle is like so sweet. Like I wanted to be in this bookshop, how she described it, and just books everywhere, and this area, which I actually think is a real place, where they're like, it's an area with like just bookshops, but just like different kinds. I would love to see that place. And this book is divided into two parts. Part one is like her with her uncle, where she works at the bookshop. And then part two is her relationship with someone else. But I think it just really divided up the book too much, where almost it like cut the flow in the book. I loved part one. I could have stayed in part one for the whole book. Like, I wish we just had way more of part one of this book. I didn't care for part two. I didn't feel it was as heartfelt. I wasn't like, oh, like, it just wasn't as good and not nearly as atmospheric, because in part one, we're in the bookshop in this little like town area going to book fairs, and in part two, they're not even like at the shop. So I felt like it could have been like two different books. I thought it was going to be a 5-star based on part one, and part two, I was like, nah. So I gave this 3.5 stars. It is a slice of life literary fiction, and I would say would I recommend it? Like, maybe. I think there were a lot of like good things said about like books, and I like the relationship. I would say just read part one. Yeah, I don't know. I'd say maybe. The next book I also do not have a physical copy of, but I read In Any Lifetime. This is a sci-fi romance about a physicist, Jonas Cullen, who after losing his wife, Amanda, in a tragic accident, uses his groundbreaking research to search for a parallel universe where she still is alive. I love the universe jumping, the time jumping. There were some cringy lines that I thought could have been better. I felt like it could have been more emotional. Like, it is sad. I felt like I could have felt more. I do think it was the perfect length of a book. Like, I don't think it should have been shorter or longer. Like, I think it was the perfect length. I loved the science talk about the different multiple world theory, and like how he's jumping to different universes and like the toll it takes. And he also has someone trying to stop him. There are also like repercussions of like jumping to multiple universes, and like the universe is trying to stop him. It is very interesting. Oh, my light. I guess, no. Oh no, the other one turned off too. Hold on. Now I have to try to get it back to that same color. I can control the color on here. Hold on. I got the lights back on. I do feel fondly of this book. It's not a book that I felt like I needed to buy it after finishing it. Like, you know, sometimes I'll finish, often, I'll finish a book digitally and feel like I want to buy that book. And I did not feel that way about this book. That's how I kind of knew it wasn't a 5-star. But I've wanted to read this for a really long time, and I'm so glad I did. And it was one of my 26 for 2026. I don't know if I already said that. I gave it 4 stars. If you like the science-y talk and like a love story that like has time travel and stuff like that, I would recommend this. It was good. It was good. And it was like exciting too. Then I read a very good book. I finally read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I annotated it. There we go. I loved flipping through every page of this book. I'm also like thankful for this book. It was given to me, and like I always like knew I wanted to read it, and then when it was given to me I was like, okay, I have to read this book now. Like, I have it. And I put it on my 26 for 2026. So this book, this was a good book. This follows the decade-long complex relationship between two friends, Sam Mazer and Sadie Green, who become successful video game designers together, exploring themes of love, creativity, disability, and connection through their shared passions for games. This won the 2022 Goodreads Choice Award for Best Fiction. This was a great book. It did not feel like it was too long. I like following them over a long period of time. Like, we start off with them as they're like kids, and I think the book ends their early 40s or late 30s. It's very sad. It's very touching. It is emotional. I love the video game talk. Like, I don't know how video games are designed. I don't know how they're made. And this is also like in the 90s, I think, so probably a little different to how they're made now, I would assume. But I liked that too, that this started off in the 90s. So like the games that they were playing and became like obsessed with in the early on in this book are like not what kids are like playing today. I liked that. And it's just like, I tabbed it so much. I really enjoyed this book. And it's not like there is a whole lot going on in this book. We're following a relationship, a very complex relationship. There's, you know, there are times when they like love each other. There are times that they hate each other. And they, you know, they design video games together. So there's some like competitiveness in this book. There's some betrayal. I really loved, like at the end, our character is, you know, she's not 20 and she's with 20-year-olds, and she has this like realization. She's like, I used to be the youngest one in the room, and I felt like that was kind of like my superpower, like I'm the youngest one here. And she's like, and I'm not anymore. I'm the oldest one in this room. And so I liked that discussion, and I thought it was very good. I did not think it was a 5, and I think I still stand by that. I thought I might change my mind, but I gave it a 4.75. Very close to a 5, but it's a gut thing, like rating a book a 5, and I didn't finish this and think that was a 5. I was like, that was fairly close. So if you like books that maybe not a ton happens, and I mean, it is kind of a longer book, but personally I didn't think it felt like a long book, but you know, kind of like Normal People. This kind of reminds me of like Normal People but longer. And you're interested in like the video game, the creative talk of like making video games, then I would recommend this. And the last book that I read that I also do not own a copy of, if I found a copy at a used bookstore, I think I would buy it. That's kind of the conclusion I've come to. But I read Circe by Madeline Miller. I've been curious about this book for a while because I feel like everyone loved it. This is a fantasy mythology book. This is a methodical retelling of the life of Circe, a minor goddess from the Greek mythology, best known from the Odyssey by Homer, which I did try to read. We'll talk about it right now. She briefly appears as a witch who turns Odysseus's men into pigs. Miller expands her story into a rich, character-driven novel about identity, power, exile, and independence. This is a story about motherhood and its struggles, morality, seeing life like as a gift, the selfishness of the gods, and like how like when she's with the other gods, like they all drove me nuts. And she is kind of like this oddball, and I don't know where these gods are. It's not Olympus, I don't think. Like I think at one point they like say they are going to Olympus. I'm not exactly sure. But she doesn't really understand how the gods view mortals and kind of just like how they live. She just kind of feels like this isn't for her exactly. And she gets exiled to this island. And we are just following her very like long life. She's immortal, she's a god. And she does fall in love with Odysseus, who I do not like. And we're probably not supposed to like him, I'm assuming. I don't know. I didn't like how multiple women just like have to have Odysseus. A big theme in this book is motherhood, and I loved that part of the book. It's a lot of the book. And there were some exciting scenes with like a sea serpent and like an adventure kind of aspect to the book. And I really liked the end of this book. So I liked it. I feel very fondly of this book. It's very interesting. When I think of this book, I think of like certain colors. Like, it's very atmospheric, this book. And I like Greek mythology. Like, I thought that was interesting to kind of like learn about. You know, they're like different gods are like talked about, and I liked learning about them until they started driving me nuts. I would recommend it. It is, again, a slower book. Not this like fast-paced grand adventure kind of book. There are some things, like I said, that happened that were exciting, but it is very much like, you know, she lives isolated, and it is just her in this island for a long period of time. So it's not the most exciting book, but it is a beautiful book. Like, how it was written is very beautiful. I just did not like Odysseus. But I would recommend it, and like I said, I would buy a physical copy. I would not buy it new. I would buy it used. I mean, I always try to see if I can buy books used. But when I saw that this story of Circe is, it comes up in the Odyssey, I did try to read it by Homer. The edition that I got on my Kindle, and it's probably not like this for all the editions, but the first 100 pages are just about the Odyssey. I didn't know that. So I read, I don't know, maybe I want to say 7. 7's the number that comes in my mind. I was like 6, 7 pages, and I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. Like, I don't know anything about this book, about the Odyssey. I mean, I like know, like I recognize it, but I was like, I don't know anything about it. And it's talking about like the history of the book and like how it was all put together and everything. But then I was like, okay, just like how long is the introduction to like the history of this book? And it was 100 pages. I was like, okay, I am skipping that. I was like, if this were like 10, 20 pages, sure, I'm interested to know how this like super old book came about, but not 100 pages. So by the time I got to the first few pages, I was like, I wanted to read something else. I was like, maybe I'll come back to this. And I'm curious about it. Like, I recently wanted to try to pick it back up and like learn a little bit more about it. And especially with the movie coming out, which I mean, I'm not gonna probably go like see it in theaters or anything, but I'm curious. Like, I think it would be kind of cool to like read the Odyssey, but I don't know how that reading experience would be, if I would like enjoy it or not. So I just kind of was like, I don't think this is for me right now, and maybe pick it up another time. But knowing that Circe like was in that book, it made me just think like, oh, maybe I should read the Odyssey. I don't know. So maybe in the future I'll read that. My least favorite book of the month was Silver Shard by Geneva Monroe. I do not recommend this book. Now I like don't even know if I want to recommend the first 2 books now after reading this book. My most disappointing, because I just really thought I was gonna love it, was Brave New World. Not disappointed in the writing or anything like that. Disappointed in my experience with it. If that makes sense, right? Like, I know this is a good book. Like, I do think the themes are really good and I liked the ending, but my experience was disappointing with this. So this was my disappointing read. And it was the first book of the year. And my favorite book that I read was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. There were no 5 stars this month, which was like really surprising to me, but this was my favorite book. Like, I'm so glad that I found a good book this month, and this was definitely it. And if I had to reread one of these books, it would be Brave New World. That is my, like, if I had to reread one, it would be this. And I do see that happening because I want to try again. You know what I mean? So 9 books for January. I'm really happy with that. I'm on track for my 100 books. I'm actually 8 books ahead because I read so much in February. I cannot wait to talk about my February books. And honestly, having this helped me so much. I stress out about making these videos because I don't know what to say sometimes, and this was like so helpful. I'm so happy about this little notebook. But these were the books I read in January. Again, it was not a good month, like really wasn't, but that's okay. Not every reading month's gonna be great. I'm just glad that I did read my TBR. Like, I'm glad that I know that I don't like some of these books, and that I read a really good one. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. I'm gonna have a reading vlog coming up soonish, and sorry, that was loud. I cannot wait to talk about my February books, and I want to pick out my March books already. I'm really excited. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.